Hi guys, Orville from Pixel Party here, and I'd like to show off a step sequencer. What's happening, everybody? This is an application I wrote called Sequincer, and what it does is outputs DMX and OSC addresses in a step sequence, similar to like an 808 drum machine. So let's dive in. At the very beginning of this, if you hit reset, it'll reset all of your sequences. And we have our DMX channel, we have our OSC address, we have a fade in type, and then we have our OSC out type, which is either float or an integer. So to demonstrate this, let's use DMX channel 1, and let's find something that we can assign an OSC address to. So if we pull up Arena, and let's add in a solid color source. We go to our clip, and let's adjust the hue of this source. So if we go to Shortcuts, OSC, click on the hue. We can't use both of these, it's one or the other, so I'm going to use the top one. I'm going to go back into Sequincer, and in the OSC address, we will add that in. I'm going to leave my fade in time at 0, so it just snaps to it. And if we go back to Arena and look at this particular parameter, it says it is a float, 0 to 1. So we will leave our OSC type to float. We can also give this a label, so I'm going to label this hue shift. Next, we need to go ahead and assign the pattern we want to play back. So right now we are currently in the output setup. We click that, and it takes it right to our sequencer. And right here we have 4 beats per bar, and we have 4 bars, so that is the first 8 beats. And then up at the top right here it says beats 1 through 16. If we click on that, that'll take us to our beats 17 through 32. So what we can do is we can kind of just drag these sliders a little bit to animate the hue. Something that you can also do is at the bottom right here where it says 0, you can click that and it jumps to 25%. Click it again, it jumps to 50. One more time to 75, and again up to 100. So you can quickly toggle through some, generic offsets that you might end up seeing. Alright, so we have beats 1 through 16 kind of set up here, so that's what our pattern is going to look like. Let's jump over to beats 17 through 32 and do the same. There we are. So now up at the top, if we hit play, it should start playing the sequence out and output those values to our DMX and our OSC address. We have our BPM that we can assign, the current beat that the sequencer is on. And then there's a couple different ways we can control BPM. Right now it's set to local, so basically this BPM field right here is going to control the BPM. If we click on Resolume, if Resolume is outputting OSC, it'll get the BPM value from Resolume. And if you click on Ableton, it'll listen to any incoming Ableton devices. And this right here will show you if you have any active links or not. Let's go ahead and hit play. So you can see we are cycling through, and if we jump over to our beats 17 through 32, and we're back on beat 1, there we are. Let's go to Arena. As you can see, we are now getting our hue to animate. If we go back to our output assignment, we can assign a fade time in between each values. So let's give this like 1/4 of a second fade. That should smooth that out to where it's not jumping so much. Now we're getting a little bit of a transition time in between each value. If we click on our OSC out type to integer, we can now specify a start and end range for this address. I'm going to go ahead and stop this. So let's come back into Arena here, and we will go to our OSC shortcuts. And let's say we want to animate our layer 1 transition type. Notice that says integer. So what we will do is copy that address, go back into Sequincer, paste it, and we'll set our fade time back to 0, and that range was from 0 to 59. I'm going to start this one at 1 instead of 0. I was getting some weird performance when it was at 0, so I'll just keep that at 1. And if we come back and hit play, you can see we are now outputting our integer to control our blend type. If we click on reset, it'll reset everything. Let's go ahead and do DMX real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And there we are. Okay. So we are outputting DMX channel 1, and if we go down to our settings here, we can see that our DMX output is set to net 0, subnet 0, universe 0. I'm sorry, that was 15. Let's change that to 0. Our DMX output address is broadcasting everything on our network, but you can specify a specific IP address. We have our OSC import. This is for getting the BPM tempo from Resolume via OSC. And also something I built in is if you hit resync on this inside of Resolume, that will also resync the starting beat on this as well. And then we have our OSC out address and our OSC out port. At the top we have our readout, so you can see what the current DMX value is for OSC and DMX. So we're outputting DMX channel 1, and if we go back to Arena, go to shortcuts, DMX, I have layer 1 opacity set to DMX channel 1. I'll go ahead and put this back to add, and if we hit play, you can see we are now getting animation through DMX. And if we add a bit of a fade between these, say half a second, that should smooth the value out a little bit more. If you notice, if we turn on a bunch of these different channels, the more animation and the more flashiness that's going on in the UI is going to slow the app down a little bit. If you hit perform mode, it puts everything right back into the output setup that doesn't have a whole lot of animation going on, and it keeps your FPS up a lot higher. Right now we are looking at outputs 1 through 8. So you see here label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If we hit outputs 1 through 8 here, it's going to jump us over to 9 through 16. So we have 16 outputs on this, and there's 32 steps per output. At the bottom, you can bypass your DMX and OSC. You can save, and you can hit reset. Just like all the other apps, there is a question mark down here. If you click on that, you should be able to click any of these labels, and it'll tell you what they do. And real quick, let's just do one of these other links. If we click on Resolume and go back to Resolume, let's say we change this to 60 BPM. Notice this is now set up to 60 as well. Well, there you have it. This should be a lot of fun. You can create a bunch of different sequences with this and play out your video just like you would an 808 drum. Goodbye.